Welcome to Maniacally Midwest, a true crime podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Maniacally Midwest.
Hello.
First, we're going to do our weather check-in. It's hot. It's sticky. Katie, over to you.
Same here. Although I'm not complaining about the hot, so I'm okay with it.
This means we're one step closer to Katie getting on a boat. So
Yes.
that's good. Just so everybody knows.
Prayers for the weekend. Yeah. Every single weekend. Hope for sunshine, no rain. That's all I need. Especially not thunderstorms. Rain I can deal with. Thunderstorms means die.
Bad times on a lake. Yeah.
Don't do that.
So for those of you that are not familiar with our podcast, we are Maniacally Midwest. So each week, one of us picks a true crime, obviously all based out of the Midwest. I'm in Wisconsin, but from Michigan. Katie's in Michigan, but from Wisconsin. So we love the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
And the fun part is the other person doesn't know about what's going to happen in this case. So this week, Katie is going to be presenting, and I get to react along with all of you. So, Katie, take it away.
All right. Before I jump into it, you guys, I'm going to showcase my coffee mug.
Yes.
It says never forget. And this is Muhammad and Danielle from 90 Day Fiancé. I was gifted this by my friend Roddy, aka Karate. That's what my daughter calls her. She thinks her name is Karate. But it was really funny because she gave me this as a gift. And then I was drinking coffee out of it. And my daughter asked me, "Oh, is that Boris and Karate?" Oh, and I laughed a bunch because neither Boris nor Karate look anything like either of these people, where I was like, what?
Probably for the best.
So, I mean, I think, Roddy, I'm so sorry if she offended you. We both know you look nothing like Danielle. In your dreams, you were pulling it in like this sexy beast. So anyways, the goal is, I had a discussion with Karate. And she thinks that I need to up my 90 Day Fiancé mug collection and showcase it to everyone. So if you have a life and don't watch 90 Day Fiancé, I'm so sorry for you. That sounds horrible because I have no life and I watch 90 Day Fiancé. So anyways.
It's good. You guys should definitely, like, really trashy reality TV is my dirty pleasure. Okay, I need to know that somebody's life is worse than mine, and there's just an abundant amount of content out there that proves that. 90 Day Fiancé, great. It really.
That being said, if we have any international listeners that are looking to get a K-1 visa to the U.S., we have a friend, Dino, who I think would be prime fodder for the show 90 Day Fiancé. So I'd be more than happy to facilitate that because I would also love to be one of the friends that's like, except for I would be like, girl, Dino, no. Run away. Run away.
Do better.
So, all right, we're going to jump right into it. This week, we're going to be in Illinois, and I'm not going to do a whole bunch of background on the town that they're from just because the situation does not happen there. So, it is June 14th, 2007, and it's like about 5:15 in the morning. And on a frontage road near like I-55 around the Joliet, Illinois area, which is like kind of a southwestern suburb of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
A driver saw a man limping on the side of the road. And when the driver asked him if he had been in a car accident after seeing his state and seeing the blood that Chris Vaughn had on him, he responded, "No, I think my wife shot me." Yes.
Oh my God.
Chris is then taken to a nearby hospital where emergency staff identified his wounds as being gunshot wounds. both to his left leg and his left wrist.
Aye.
So it was during this time in the hospital, as he's being treated for his wounds, that Illinois state troopers locate the family's SUV on this frontage road and find all occupants of this vehicle dead.
Oh boy.
The occupants were Blake, his 8-year-old son, Cassandra, his 11-year-old daughter, and Abigail, his 12-year-old daughter, and their mother, and Chris's wife, Kimberly, who was 34.
Oh my God.
The children had been shot twice, once to their heads and once to their torsos, and Kimberly had 1 bullet wound to her head. At Kimberly's feet would be laying a 9mm gun and her purse. Now, this 9mm gun did belong to Chris Vaughn. So, at this point, Chris had identified to the motorist that his wife had been the shooter in this incident. However, at the hospital, he did tell the nurse, "You need to call my wife. She gets mad when I don't call her." So, following this treatment for his gunshot wounds, he was brought into the station for questioning, and police interviewed him for like 14 to 20 hours. And there's this range because there's differing stories depending on who you ask. I mean, 14 hours is a crap ton of time considering what he had been through. So I don't think that 20 hours makes it extreme while 14 hours is normal. I think that's like an insane amount of time to be interviewing him.
That's a very long time.
In addition to that, he was being questioned in his hospital gown. So like immediately from the hospital,
Oh wow.
he's being interviewed. And I say interviewed, but in my personal opinion, that sounds like an interrogation, because why would you do that?
Yeah.
So he also was brought back into the station for questioning again on the 15th and on the 17th. So the 14th is the same day they were killed, just to clarify in case you forgot from the date. So
Yeah.
same day, 14 hours in interview, 15th and 17th, he's back there again. So basically, the information that they had gotten from him is that they were on their way to a water park in Springfield, Illinois, which I think that I have a memory in my head of driving down to St. Louis from like Wisconsin, because my aunt lives in St. Louis. And I think I do remember like a gigantic water park in the Springfield area, like right off the highway, that I'll always be like, "Mom." But so I'm assuming that's what I'm thinking of when he says that.
Yeah.
His wife, Kimberly, wanted him to pull over because she was feeling nauseous. So he pulled onto the frontage road, and then he parked in front of this like cell phone tower. And he got out of the car and he checked the back tires. I don't know why. He doesn't explain why he would check back tires, but he checks the back tires, and then he resecured like like those like hard plastic things that look
I
like
knew
little
you were about to say
suitcase.
this, okay? Because I just saw one of these at the thrift store the other day, and it brought back all my '90s memories, like this
Well, you
cargo
don't see them
toppers,
at
nail.
yes. Yeah.
Yes.
You don't see those anymore, but he
No.
resecured that.
Okay.
And then he like noticed that his leg was bleeding, he said, when he got back into the vehicle.
Okay.
However, he had zero memory of the shooting of his wife or children. So police suggested that Kimberly did it, and he said no. There's no way she could have hurt the kids. So
Well, then who did?
during the questioning, the police had told him at one point that his family was not dead, and he asked them to bring Kimberly in so he could talk to her. They also claimed at one point that cell phone towers had cameras on them since 9/11, which he perked up at and suggested that they use that video to piece together the events. Obviously, both of these things were not true.
Right. How kosher is that? Are they allowed to just tell people those things?
Police are allowed to mislead or lie to get a confession out of someone, just in case you were wondering. That's
This
allowable.
seems sus. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm not even gonna lie and tell you that I don't use those tactics in parenting. But when it comes to the legal system, it's where I draw the line.
Yeah, listen, I do that to my daughter, my baby. I haven't started doing that yet too, but no, I will totally make stuff up. Also, I will lie about how I knew something so she doesn't know my tricks when I'm like, "I know you're lying." I don't tell her, like, your toothbrush wasn't wet. That's how I know you didn't brush your teeth, because then she'll know
Mhm.
to make your toothbrush wet. You got to
Yep,
keep some of your secrets.
exactly.
So Chris was preparing with his family and his wife's family for the funeral of his wife and 3 children.
Okay.
And shortly before the funeral was to begin, police came in and arrested him in front of everyone at the funeral,
Oh, wow.
which,
That's
I mean,
aggressive.
it's a lot. His family says that they could hear his in-laws celebrating his arrest, and following that, his dad and brothers actually were pallbearers in the funeral and were trying to keep it together. It's a weird situation because I feel like that's really mean to be celebrating, but at the same time, like, you kind of have to keep in mind that there was, like, did their own daughter do this? So in their mind, it's not just that the killer has been arrested, it's like confirming to them that their kid was not the one that did this to their grandchildren. So,
Well, and grief is weird too. I mean, I don't know. It's a very strange situation to live through just in general.
yeah. Um, During this time, he came forward with no information still or memory of the events, and a psychologist would say that he was suffering from dissociative amnesia and noted that it would be very difficult for him to fake this situation.
Okay.
So initially, the case against Chris was a death penalty case because at that point in time, Illinois did have the death penalty. And with death penalty cases, there's a lot more due diligence to make sure that innocent people are not being put to death.
That
And in
makes
addition, to that, the budget for like the defense team is a lot higher.
okay.
So initially, Chris had a team that was really well put together, and they were using all of the tools that they had in their belts to properly defend their client. However, as we have mentioned in other cases that were in Illinois, Illinois did away with the death penalty.
Mhm.
So, with that, the state told his public defenders that they would no longer be paid, and if they wanted to continue pro bono, they could. And when his team requested that they get a $250,000 check and they'd continue, which apparently is their like discounted version, which I'm like, holy balls.
It's
Uh,
some of these people, yeah. It's ridiculous.
I mean, I don't know at that point if like they had been paid prior to, or if it was like they were stuck with like all of this unbillable hours. I have no idea. When they're saying 250,000, is that going forward, or is that like to cover also
Like,
everything they already had done?
yeah.
So, the state of Illinois declined and they bounced. They were like, yeah, no, we're good.
Oh no.
So the trial comes up and there's a lot of dirt on Chris that comes up. Number one, he had been at the shooting range the day before with that gun.
Ew.
And he did have gunpowder residue on his clothing.
Hmm.
He says that he worked really strange hours. So he was working in like computer forensics / cybersecurity stuff. So he would work really like strange hours and like work through the night. So him going to the gun range in the same clothes, working through the night, and then them leaving really early, like it was 5:15 in the morning when he was found walking on the side of the road. So that means that they were in the car like what, 4 a.m., 4:30.
Super early.
I mean, I get it, Chicago traffic, because they
Yeah.
lived where they lived was Oswego, which is like just around Aurora. So they
Oh,
didn't have a super far distance, but they had made this distance, and then there was enough time that this occurred. If he's walking down the road at 5:15, I feel like 5 a.m. maybe is when it happened, 4:45.
yeah.
um, so there's that, which does not look great for him that he has residue on his clothes. Um, There was also, he was a very outdoorsy person, and he had gone onto this online forum talking about running away to Canada and living off the grid.
I mean, same. Honestly, who has not had that thought? I guess I haven't put it on the internet, but
Well, so he also went to Canada on a camping trip, and when he was talking with one of the people on this outdoor forum thing in person, he asked them, like, how maybe he could fake his death so his wife could get, like, insurance money, and he just was donezo.
Okay, this guy is a cybersecurity expert and he's thinking, oh, this is a good thing to put on the public domain internet.
Well, okay, here's my
Anyway,
theory on that, is, like, fine, he's, like, cybersecurity and stuff, but I don't know in 2007 that we all really had the forethought that things that we did would stick around forever.
I think there's a lot of clear examples that no, we did not. I mean, how old was I in 2007? There's got to be some classic footage.
I was 19, so I was running wild.
I don't know. I can't math right now. I'm 28.
Okay, so you are 6 years younger than me, which shut up.
So I was 13.
Yours are I mean, I was 19, so I was crazy, but I also was smart enough to, like, hide what I was doing. You probably were making worse choices than I was.
But not on the internet yet, because I don't remember getting Facebook until high school. So it wasn't documented. He was going to Canada. Katie was getting drunk in the streets of Madison
I
and
was in Milwaukee. Come on.
in Milwaukee, rather. Sorry. And I was in middle school. Got it. Okay.
In addition to that, prosecutors would reveal that Chris had frequented a couple of strip clubs several times prior to his family's murder, which, I mean, basically, I feel like they're setting him up for character assassination with that one.
Yeah.
Like,
Who
how,
cares? All right. There's nothing wrong with going to the strip club.
I mean, he would spend around $5,000 in 2 nights, which,
Oh, that's a lot of money to spend on that.
yeah, I'm not gonna, like, shame anyone for going to the strip club, like, that's not my jam, but, like, you do you. However, if I did find out that not only my husband went to the strip club and it was, like, secret, that I think the secret stuff would
The
piss me off
secret thing
more.
is, yeah, no, you
And
gotta.
then the $5,000, like, really? We couldn't have spent $5,000 on something not a stripper?
That's a lot of money, especially. I mean, that's a lot of money now. That was a lot of money in 2007.
So, since he was doing this, like, cybersecurity kind of stuff, he actually had a salary of, like, $250,000, so he was, like, not
He had disposable income.
he did, but I still think $5,000 would piss any person off.
That's a lot.
So, 2 of the exotic dancers were called to testify,
Oh,
and
thank
one
God.
on one on the stand would say that he told her he wanted to leave his wife and move to Canada, and the other testified that he said he wasn't married, which I think
Who
the first
talks?
one is worse than the second one. I think there's probably a lot of dudes going to the strip club saying, "I'm not married," to
Well,
be
yeah,
honest.
but who talks to strippers like that in depth? I mean, trust me, I love a good visit. I have had some very interesting conversations with strippers, okay? Because I do think it is different as a woman walking into those situations. I think there's more conversating going on. But I feel like with guys, I can't imagine sitting there like getting a lap dance and being like, "Ugh, I'm gonna go to Canada. Like, ugh, yeah, you know.
Well, according to, like, an interview that I listened to with, like, one person who works in the strip club, she said that usually the people who dropped a lot of cash were less interested in, like, the stripping aspect
Well,
of it
there's
and more,
that,
like,
and
unloading
everything.
emotional. And if you watch 90 Day Fiancé, Jovi would claim that that's what he's into strip clubs for. Like, it's just a good time. He's trying to make, like, connections with people.
Go get
So,
an escort like a normal person. Go fly to Vegas. Anyways, okay.
yeah. Um, there would also be uncovered that he had gone on a trip to Mexico without his family, and he did cheat on his wife one time. That,
Not very nice.
no bueno, sir. But also, they revealed that he had taken a $1 million life insurance policy on Kimberly before this incident,
Okay.
which, okay, if he makes like 6 figures, right? I don't feel like that's that strange. Like, I would be interested to find out what was the life insurance policy on him, because
Well,
he
that's what
was
I was going to
saying,
say.
Yeah, because he was saying to the Canada guy that he was going to fake his own death and she could have the insurance money. I would assume that he has large life insurance policies on himself also, because his wife was a stay-at-home mom at that point. So, in September 2012, he was convicted for all 4 deaths, and it took the jury less than 1 hour to come to the conclusion of his guilt, and he's currently serving 4 life sentences.
Oh, wow.
But this is not the end, because there's an advocacy group called Investigating Innocence, and they're now involved with Chris. His parents were also on the Dr. Phil show in 2021, trying to get his case back in the limelight.
Our guy. Somebody call Kim Kardashian.
Yeah, she should get in there. Although I guess she's focusing on people who are like disadvantaged by the system.
I was just gonna say, or like minorities. I don't think he really checks any of these boxes.
So here's the like interesting thing is like the people who are now involved with it are saying that like, okay, well, he took public defenders. He did have money. So why would he do that?
Oh, that is weird. I didn't think about that until right now.
Because like $250,000 is like a yearly salary for him that the lawyers were asking from the state of Illinois. But he claims, okay, here, before I go into that, fine, let's just jump into the other side of things, that he's innocent.
Okay.
So they say that, first of all, this trip to Springfield, they were going to this water park. They were going to have fun as a family. But then he was going to drop his kids off at his parents' house that live in like St. Louis area. So like going south, because Springfield is south of Chicago area. Him and Kim were going to go on to the hotel that they had spent their wedding night at. And he had booked this room for this like way to rekindle their marriage, because things were not obviously going awesome.
Yeah.
So secondly, there was a crime scene investigator whose name is Robert Deal, who had worked on the case. And he was there as a crime scene investigator. He kept pointing out to the police that the prosecutors that the bullet trajectory would point to Kim being the shooter, that like the angle of the gun, all of the shots came from the passenger side, not the driver's side.
That's what I wondered too, if they could do anything with that.
And he had been warning the police of tunnel vision, like focusing on Chris, that they were only picking the evidence that pointed to him instead of looking at the evidence and see which direction it pointed.
Yeah.
So he was invited to not be a part of their testimony.
Yeah.
In addition to the bullet trajectory, there was blood on Kimberly's seatbelt buckle that they initially believed was hers, and claims that she unbuckled herself after getting shot. But it was Chris's blood on the seatbelt buckle after DNA testing.
Ooh.
So recently, Chris wrote a letter to his parents saying that he actually didn't have amnesia, which is weird because I thought that a psychologist testified it would be like basically impossible for him to fake that.
Right.
He didn't have amnesia, but he said that he would not and could not tell the police that his wife was a murderer. He thought that the police would look at the evidence and see what was obvious, that she had done all of this, but he didn't want to come forward and be like, my wife, the mother of my children, did this to her own kids.
Aww.
Which, I mean, I can kind of understand if, like, I wouldn't want to come out and be like, yeah, my husband's a freaking killer. I've been married to him. He's a monster.
Well, especially when you're going through trauma, like I could see that as being, like it's a lot to lose everything all at once and for it to be from somebody that you love.
Yeah. So in his explanation in this letter, he claims that he pulled over to the side. He went outside. He's doing all that stuff outside, and he heard what he explains as an explosion from the inside of the car. And so he comes in and he sees the kids are shot, and he tried taking away the gun. He was shot himself by her, and then she placed the gun under her chin and pulled the trigger.
Oh my gosh.
He reached over the console to try and buckle her so he could drive for help, and he couldn't buckle her, so he got out and walked. Which, okay. whatever. We can
That's
return.
weird, but, like, then again, like, also, you know, like, you see the footage of Jackie Kennedy after JFK, like, she's literally trying to put the pieces of his head back on because she thinks,
Yeah,
like
like reaching on the back of the car to try and grab
Yeah.
pieces of his head. Yeah. Okay, so another piece is Kimberly was actually on 2 prescriptions, Topamax and I might butcher this. Sorry, Dad. Nortriptyline.
Okay.
So allegedly she was on these for her migraines. But it's
Okay.
commonly used for bipolar disorder.
Oh.
So these 2 drugs individually have FDA warnings that they can increase the risk of suicide, and combining them even more so.
Oh, boy.
2 weeks prior to this, she sent Chris an email saying that she told her doctor she was experiencing both personality and anxiety changes. So, like, with a lot of these drugs, in case anyone is terrified of being prescribed these medications, it doesn't happen to everyone, but if you do get put on a prescription for like depression or anxiety, they say that like what you really need to do is make sure that everyone who is immediately surrounding you knows that you are just starting this, because typically these like side effects will happen within like the first 2 weeks to like a month of. So if people start noticing something is like off with you, then either you can be taken off of it or the dosage adjusted.
Yeah.
But it is important that people kind of know what's going on, because that can be the thing that saves your life or other people's lives, which I
Yeah.
think is hard because a lot of people struggle with depression and anxiety. And I think that it can be embarrassing to admit that you actually need help. It shouldn't be. It should be the same as like taking an antibiotic. But for a lot of people, there's a stigma and they don't want to be like, hey, listen, I have to take medication because something's wrong with me. So can you watch me to make sure that I don't like lose my shit further? I
Yeah.
get that, but it is super important. So at the time of Kimberly's autopsy, her nortriptyline level was on the low end of the toxic level of the medication, which is kind of interesting.
Okay.
As his parents grieved their loss, they were cleaning out the family's house. And during this time, like a young girl knocked on the door, and she said that her granddaughter used to draw such wonderful pictures for her, and she wondered if she could have one of her drawings to remember her by.
Oh.
And so the grandma gave her one, and the following day, that girl and another little girl the same age came back, and the other one asked for a drawing, and the grandma invited them in and said, like, you can go in her room and you can pick out like something small from her bedroom to remember her by if you want.
Oh.
And they picked something small. I don't remember that it said what they chose, but it was during this time that the little girls revealed that she'd never been inside the house. Like, they were allowed to play in the front yard or the backyard, but like no one was allowed inside the house. That even if they had to go to the bathroom, it was Kim's instruction, you're not coming inside. You go to your own house and go to the bathroom, which listen, if I don't know someone's family, like we have little neighborhood kids that play, and it's not that I would be like, you're not allowed inside my house, but if I don't know the parents that well, I would rather them not, because you don't want anyone feeling uncomfortable with stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it's a whole thing now. But I think that I know if a little kid was like, I have to pee, I'd be like, yeah, here's the bathroom. Like,
Right. No, definitely.
so in addition to that, while she was cleaning out the house, she discovered years of wrapped gifts and unopened birthday cards hidden in closets and filing cabinets that her and her husband, so the grandparents, had sent, and Kim had never given to her children.
That's super weird to keep it, because if I feel like if you don't wanna give it to him, why would you not just throw it out?
Keep in mind, they weren't estranged. That's the
Yeah.
part that is strange to me. Like, okay, if it's someone that you're like, this person is toxic, I don't even want to draw attention to the fact that this person is not a part of my kid's life. Like, maybe actually the gift would do more harm than good.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the situation, so what the crap?
That's super weird.
Okay, so given all of that, I don't know what to say about this case. There's a lot of really weird stuff going on, and it doesn't make Chris look good. It actually makes him look like real crappy.
Yeah.
But I think that I should also point out that during this time, the DA was up for re-election.
Ugh.
And Chris's case, as well as there was another very famous case going on, Drew Peterson's. I don't know if you remember him. Not Scott Peterson, just so we're clear.
That's what I
Scott
was gonna
Peterson
say.
is I think San Francisco Bay area is where Scott Peterson was. Drew Peterson was an ex-police officer who was convicted of killing his latest wife. I believe it was his latest wife he got a conviction for, but there were several wives that went missing. So,
God.
and those two cases were taking place in the same courthouse around the same time, and they were his biggest cases, and he was using them as a platform for re-election. So he was aware that the bullet trajectory did not match up.
Ugh.
And he was aware of the blood evidence as well. But he just kind of ignored it and never brought it up.
So he just wanted a conviction to make himself look good? Is that what the...
Yes. So I'm not sure how many of you are aware what prosecutorial immunity is. Have you ever heard of that?
I've maybe heard it, but no, I'm not like super familiar.
So essentially, prosecutors have immunity in the United States in like the prosecution and presenting the state's case. So this is like something that's protected by the Supreme Court in 1976 when they decided prosecutors should have absolute immunity and they cannot be sued for any kind of misconduct in the advocacy of the courtroom. So basically, there's no recourse to any kind of action by the prosecutor or their inaction if they like are withholding evidence.
Negligent, yeah.
It's kind of bullshit.
I was gonna say, I don't know that makes a ton of sense because I feel like that gives people free reign to pursue, like in this instance.
Well, so like in cases where people who are like wrongfully convicted, the prosecutor can't be tried. So like in cases like Making the Murderer with Stephen Avery, he was wrongfully convicted of that rape in Manitowoc County and he did years of jail time. Well, who gets sued is like Manitowoc County. It will never be the prosecutor, even if they knew that they had someone else that actually was good for the crime. There's no recourse for that.
That's ridiculous.
There was a docuseries on Netflix called, I think, Innocence Files. And there's like a bunch of cases. It's not like one prosecutor. It's like all over the country where they show that the prosecutor behaved inappropriately. In my mind, should it be illegally? But
well, yeah.
Whatever. So I'm going to give you my insight on this. Then I'm going to ask you for yours.
Okay.
So I'm on the fence about who I think is responsible for this death. I don't, here's the difference. I don't know who's responsible for it, but I don't think that he should be convicted because I don't think that the prosecutors like have overcome the burden of proof. And I don't think that the jury had enough evidence to convict him beyond a reasonable doubt. That being said, I think the new letter is weird. That he now is like, yeah, I did lie about amnesia. So when you're asking the nurse to call your wife Kim, you already knew she was dead. And also when you're like, oh, I was going to drive to get help, but I couldn't buckle her. She shot herself in the head. Do you think if you got an offender bender and she like bumped her head after that, that there would be any more severe consequences?
Yeah.
Like, that's bizarre to me.
I think there's weird pieces on both sides. What if they both were planning something and it went awry?
Here's the other thing. Okay, so if he's saying that she did this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone else in the car has a headshot.
Right.
The kids have head and torso. She just has head.
Yeah.
He only gets shot in the leg and the wrist.
I know, that's the thing. It's like there's just a lot of weirdness from both sides. I don't know. But I will agree with you on the fact that I don't think that there is enough evidence to convict him. You know what I mean? I don't think for a jury to decide beyond a reasonable doubt that it was him.
So the other thing, while I think that the leg and the wrist shot are weird,
Yeah.
the doctors did note that the leg wound was pretty severe, that if it had been like just a little bit over, it would have hit his femoral artery.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, you just have two like surface wounds or something like that. But
Right.
I really don't know. Okay, we got to pick one. Who do you think did it?
I mean, I for some reason feel like she did it. I don't know that I can completely like rationally explain why, but if I really have to choose, I feel like she's exhibiting like weird behavior, whereas I think he maybe was not the best husband. Okay, kind of weird, but I don't know if he was exhibiting the same
Yeah.
activity that I would think about before you kill somebody. I'll basically put it that way.
Yeah, I think the reason that it's hard for me to say that I think it's her is I think kind of the same rationale that it was easy for them to convict him. Because I think it makes people significantly more uncomfortable to say that a mom would do that to
Yeah.
their own children than it is to say that a husband would do that, which is weird because moms and dads serve the same purpose for kids, like safety and comfort and everything. But
Right.
it does make me like internally more uncomfortable, like with the Paul Sims case. Like it just feels really bad to think that a mom could do that. That being said, the fact that 2 weeks prior she was saying like something's wrong, she knew that. The like hidden gifts thing, no one is allowed inside. They're like very isolating behaviors that I think
Yeah.
are bizarre and seem like someone who's unwell, especially if she didn't used to be that way. In addition to that, I mean, I would think there would be more evidence because either he was climbing on top of her while he's shooting from the passenger seat, or like I think that there would be more evidence pointing to him than what there is.
Yeah.
So I do kind of think that probably she is the one responsible. And who knows if she was having, well, I don't like to say this because I feel like it's pointing blame at someone who's going through a mental struggle. But I mean, if she's having these feelings and things are like bizarre and withdrawn at home, maybe it could make more sense why he's allegedly going to strip clubs and talking about his feelings to strippers.
Yeah.
Like where he's just kind of like, I don't know what to do here, where like things are weird and he's just looking for any source of comfort. That being said, even if you're going through something and showing like not really healthy coping mechanisms or like a mental breakdown, that really doesn't give anyone an excuse to cheat on people and be a butthole. If you got a problem, get out. I
Yeah.
think is always my thoughts. But we would love to hear from you guys. Who do you think did it? Obviously, there is a conviction in place as far as the court of law currently. He is the person responsible for these deaths.
Yeah.
But this one is definitely one that I think gets you thinking because it's so weird. Either way which happened, it's very weird.
It is.
And now we will move on to our little controversial topic of the week.
Yes.
This one was tricky. Chloe and I were trying to put our minds together. And there's a lot of controversial topics. Some of them, Chloe and I are very opinionated people, and we don't have a problem speaking what we think. But at this point in time, we are aware that there are, well, right now, there's a very large news topic of something that's going on. And we don't want for our listeners to feel isolated, but we also don't want for people who are listening to us to feel like this is a platform where we want to have political battles, because I think that there's a lot more to being said to just having spaces that are kind of free of like the political kind of stuff that's going on all around us. You can go anywhere and you can hear a whole bunch of political, whether it's right or left, just kind of in your ear buzzing. And
Yep.
I prefer this being a space where it's not that. So, that being said, we are going to avoid the big topic. And if you exist in the world, I'm sure you already know what I'm referring to. But the thing we are going to talk about is last week, Dave Chappelle was attacked during his set for the rude. That was Dave Chappelle calling me. Listen, we've heard your side of the story. We get it. No, he got attacked during the Netflix is a Joke like comedy festival that was going on. The guy
Mhm.
jumped up on stage, tackled him. I don't know, like a million people ran onto the stage.
Including Jamie Foxx, by the way. It was just like putting hands on this dude, the attacker, which I love.
I heard they broke his arm. I don't know that that's true or not, because what I saw of the clip, he tackles him, a crap ton of people from like backstage storm, but then he runs off towards the back. So I didn't see any following beating. As far as I know, no one touched him. I'll testify. I saw no one touch him. So,
Well, this
but
guy evidently had a knife on him as well, right?
yes, he did have a knife. I want to say that he had a fake gun as well, but I don't know if that's true or not.
The fake gun was the knife. So it was shaped
Oh,
like a gun, and then I'm not sure if it was some kind of like a switchblade or just one of the kind of like butterfly knives or
folding knives.
whatever
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
opens, you know what I mean? When you press a button.
So the LA County or whatever has declined to prosecute this case as a felony and are instead charging him with a misdemeanor, which he has pled not guilty to. And people are pissed. People are big pissed.
Well, I think it's frustrating. You know, I've heard a lot of people pick this apart a lot of different ways, but the one thing that does make me sad is especially after everybody being stuck inside for like the past 3 years, we want to go out and enjoy events, you know what I mean? And I just feel like stuff like this is more and more common. So, does that mean now that it's like flying after 9/11? You know what I mean? Like there's all these additional restrictions. Is
Yeah.
that what it's going to be like going to concerts or events at this point where it's going to have to be really locked down? There's going to be, you know, additional access is taken away like from the stage, which is like what you go to this stuff to like feel like you're in person, you know what I mean? Like that sucks. So, I think that you need to keep performers safe first and foremost 100%, because I don't think I may be wrong, but I don't think he had like any security members that were able to immediately be there to help him. It was like people from the crowd like jumping up that were there before security was, you
It's
know.
weird to me because I feel like at every concert I've ever been at, there's like security in front of the stage. So that's a
Yeah.
little bit confusing to me. I think we're also entering this bizarre era where people are extremely. I don't know what set this guy off. That's the part that's very confusing. So, I mean, we saw it with the Chris Rock, Will Smith slap,
Yeah.
where like everyone is offended. And comedy in its core is rude. And in my personal opinion, the more rude, the better it is.
Yeah.
Like whether or not it's aimed at someone sitting in the audience, like Chris Rock like made the joke like, "Oh, GI Jane 2, can't wait to see you, Jado," which I'm like, that wasn't even mean.
Right.
GI Jane was a badass, first of all. So why would you be mad if someone compared me to the glorious Dolph Lundgren? I would be like, "Yes. You will see me in Rocky Part 4, Part 2. I'll be there. Yes. Hell yes. But, I mean, Jim Gaffigan is very mild-mannered as far as, like, comedians go. Like, the
Yeah.
guy who does the Hot Pocket. You know
Yeah,
who I'm talking about?
I do.
But he makes fun of his kids. Like,
Yeah,
comedy, it's like you make joke, like, at people's expense. It doesn't mean that it's, like, personal, but the most jokes that are funny have, like, grains of truth. They have, like,
right.
I don't know. So what? Comedians
It's
can't
a
make
little
jokes
bit
now?
controversial. Well, exactly. And I don't know, because didn't Dave Chappelle have some controversy surrounding like his last Netflix special? So maybe, and I know like a lot of employees were disgruntled about that. I believe there was even some kind of like a Netflix strike, perhaps. So I don't
Uh,
know if this guy was involved in that.
I know that I've watched all of his comedy specials. I love Dave Chappelle.
Yes.
Um, and I know that he mentioned that there was controversy, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
around he made like a joke about like transgendered people or something, and
Oh,
some
that was it. Yeah.
people got really upset. I mean, here's my personal take on it. I wouldn't get on this podcast and mock like transgendered people or like gay people
No.
or whatever, because then it just seems like I'm being hateful. But like in my opinion, if you're being written into the jokes, it's like, to me, a sense of inclusion, whereas before they were just people that no one would even touch. Like it would, not literally, but like, you know what I mean? Like just an
Right.
ignored group of people.
Yeah.
So like if there's jokes being written about you, it's almost like you're people that are like recognized instead of ignored.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not fair because I'm not in their position, but that's like how I think about it, that it's like, oh, okay, like, and Dave Chappelle, he has really raunchy jokes, but
Right.
like he actually has proven that he's like one of the most inclusive, like down to earth comedians that there is. There's people like Cat Williams who's like head is bigger than whatever space you could fit him to. You could like bring him
Oh
to
my
Madison Square Garden and he just thinks that he's the hottest, best person ever. But I feel
God.
like Dave Chappelle lives in Ohio.
I was gonna say that's a bold move. I don't know anybody who wants to live there.
He voluntarily,
Wants
he's not being held there.
no,
Voluntarily, he lives in a rural area in Ohio.
he's about it. God
So,
bless. Which weirdly, I do keep hearing Ohio's making a big push, you guys. I saw one of the, I believe, I'm not sure if it's governor or mayor for one of the large cities, or maybe even somebody for the Senate, but they're talking about how Ohio is going to be the next world manufacturing superpower. I'm like, okay, well, that's a stretch, but
of
have
what?
big dreams, Ohio. And then I heard today on one of my podcasts, it was like, oh, visit Ohio. Here's all the things we have going for us. I'm like, wow, they are really out here trying to sell Ohio, and there's not a lot to be sold. But Dave Chappelle believes in it, okay? It's him and that one political guy, and they're really trying to put Ohio out there.
Well, you got to do what you got to do. Fake it till you make it. Go for it, Ohio. Dream big.
Yeah, I guess so.
The
But
other
I
thing,
guess,
the other thing about this case, I think that kind of annoys me.
yeah.
I am pissed he's not being charged with a felony because I think he should. But on the flip side, I would be interested to see, does like that county and that district typically behave more lenient, because I don't think that they should be any more aggressive or any more lenient than they would to an everyday person. Like, no offense, Dave
Well,
Chappelle, you're awesome, but like, you don't get the silver service just because you're rich and famous. Like, if they're making excuses for everyone, I think that's crappy. You
yeah.
shouldn't be throwing misdemeanors when they should be felonies.
Well, it happened in LA, didn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you've heard about what's going on in LA with their district attorney currently, but
No.
they've been very lenient on a lot of things and making a lot of F ups, and a lot of people are not
Oh.
happy. So I think this feeds into that whole situation
Okay.
as
Then
well.
again, on the flip side, while I don't think that Dave Chappelle should get like special treatment because he's famous, I mean, isn't LA like the epicenter of like celebrities?
Same.
So I suppose if you're not going to go hard on people who attack a celebrity, mm,
When I look at it, if it's any normal person, if I just look at the facts that you were attacked by somebody who had a deadly weapon and presumably was attempting to use it on you, you know what I mean? I think that there's enough there to show that, because you had to get through metal detectors to get in there. Like, you wanted to specifically have that knife on you. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm just carrying this around. You know what I mean?
I think the reason that they were going like misdemeanor instead of felony was because he didn't take the knife out until like the people backstage got
Um,
him backstage,
yeah.
which to me doesn't really matter. Like if I did that to like the president of the United States, would it matter if I took the knife out during the attack on him? Cuz I think that that would mean I had intent to do it, whether or not I could get to it and do that. My intention was there to use that against them.
And that's what I think. So I am a little bit disappointed. I also think that it sets precedent, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
for other entertainers to possibly be at risk. I mean, people
Yeah.
in general, but also, like I was saying in the beginning, I think it's really unfortunate that we can't go to events and feel safe anymore. It's always like, okay, well, what's going to happen? There's a big group of people here.
Mhm. I mean, if I was Pete Davidson, I'd be very scared. First, Will Smith doesn't have any charges pressed against him. Now this guy only has a misdemeanor. Where's Kanye at?
Listen, I think Pete performed earlier in
He
the week.
did.
Yeah. So he was fine. Nobody tried to attack him. But
Yet.
oh, side note, I'm like 99% sure that one of Kanye's vehicles from Wyoming, I don't know if you maybe saw his Super Bowl commercial where he was in that big,
Yeah, the McDonald's one?
yeah,
Yeah.
99% sure one of those is for sale from his ranch down the street from me, because they're asking above like what you could buy a new one for, and it only has 15 miles on it.
Wait.
So,
Down the street from you in Wisconsin,
yes.
someone has Kanye West's vehicle.
I'm 99% sure. The lovely people over will shout him out at Cassandra's Motorsports. They're into all kinds of stuff. They've got Lamborghinis down to like SRT Jeeps, all kinds of stuff in between. It's one of these big off road vehicles. It's called a Sherp.
I
And
listen, I love Wisconsin,
yeah,
but I have a hard time believing Cassandra got her hands on Kanye's
they auctioned
vehicle.
them all off because he had a whole bunch of like Ford like F-150 Raptors, and I mean like all kinds of stuff that he had out at the ranch, but he sold the ranch. And
Really?
so he sold, yeah, he was over that. That was cool for like a few years. Then I was like, whatever.
Oh,
And so he
I
sold
didn't
off
know
all
that.
the vehicles that were there. And these people like import cars. They sell a lot of stuff like out of state. So
Oh.
it's not out of the question. But anyways,
Yeah.
that's
So
all I have to say. How does everybody feel about the Dave Chappelle incident? Do you think this guy should have been charged with a felony? Do you think the misdemeanor is appropriate? Give us um, give us some insights. Chime
yeah,
in on our YouTube. Send us an email. Go over to our Instagram. All that good stuff, because we would love to hear from you.
that being said, thank you for the reminder. We do have a YouTube channel. If you're listening to us on like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, we do have a YouTube channel. You guys can conversate with us. As she mentioned, we have an email. Do remember when you're done listening to the podcast or watching the YouTube video to give us a like and subscribe, or if it's a podcast, to review and give us a rating as well. because that helps people find us easier. The algorithms are funky, and so the more comments we get, the more interaction we get, the more people that get to see us. I will say that like weekly, I check our listeners,
Yep.
and we do have like more and more countries are being added every day. I feel like the International House of Pancakes. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Quite the variety.
So thank you to everyone who does listen to us. I really appreciate it. I know Chloe does too.
Yeah.
But that is all we've got for this week. Remember, you can always comment on YouTube, Instagram, send us an email, maniacallymidwest@gmail.com if you've got any suggestions for cases. If you've got any controversial topics that you need for us to discuss, even if it's, I saw on Instagram, someone said, is it tie me over or tied me over? Even if it's like a household debate, what is it? What is the correct terminology? We love to hear your suggestions, and we have no problems shouting you guys out. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.